The alarm buzzed sharply at 5:15 a.m., cutting through the cold, quiet apartment. Sarah Ollie groaned and fumbled to silence it, her fingers trembling from another sleepless night. Her throat ached, her chest burned, and a stubborn cough threatened to erupt with every breath. But she couldn't afford to be sick. Not today. Not ever. Rent was due in 6 days. The electricity bill would arrive tomorrow. School snacks for Lena were already running low. Every single minute mattered, and Sarah didn't have the luxury of weakness. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, clutching the mattress while the room spun slightly around her. Her bones felt heavy, her chest tight. A sharp wave of dizziness washed over her, but she forced herself upright. One slow, steady step at a time, she shuffled toward the bathroom. The light above the mirror flickered weakly. Sarah stared at her reflection. Pale cheeks, dark rings under her eyes, lips dry and cracked. Another cough escaped, harsh and painful. "Not now," she whispered, pressing a trembling hand against her lips. She rinsed her face with cold water, willing the sickness away, then dressed in her worn navy blue work uniform, frayed at the edges from months of overuse. Every button fastened with shaky hands. "Mommy!" The small voice drifted from the doorway. Lena. 6 years old, messy curls peeking out from pink unicorn pajamas. Her tiny feet dragged across the carpet as she entered the room, rubbing her eyes. "Baby, why are you up?" Sarah tried to sound cheerful, forcing a smile even as a cough tickled her throat. "You were coughing," Lena said softly, climbing onto the bed. "Is it the bad cough again?" Sarah forced another smile. "Just a little one. Mommy's okay. You said that yesterday, and the day before." Sarah's chest tightened. Children notice everything, she realized. Every small tremor, every strained breath. She went to her daughter, brushing soft curls from her forehead. "Mommy is strong. I just need some tea and breakfast. Then I'll feel better. Like a superhero," Lena whispered. Sarah laughed softly, even as a sharp pain stabbed her chest. "Only for you." Lena rested her head against her mother's arm. "Can you stay home today?" "Stay home. Mrs. Shift. Lose even a day's pay." Sarah's mind raced. Bills, rent, electricity, medication. She couldn't afford it. "I can't," she whispered, hiding the crack in her voice. "But I'll be back early, okay?" Lena nodded and hugged her tightly, not pressing further. By 6 a.m., Sarah had made breakfast. Toast with a little honey for Lena, nothing for herself. Hunger gnawed at her, but she ignored it. Lena needed it more. After getting her daughter ready for school, they stepped into the icy morning air. Frost clung to the edges of cars and windows. Each breath burned Sarah's lungs. Lena held her hand tightly. "Mommy." "I'm okay," Sarah lied, her voice barely audible. At the school gate, Lena tugged at her sleeve. "Pinky, promise you'll rest today." Sarah hooked her pinky with her daughter's. "I'll try." Lena smiled and ran inside, leaving Sarah alone with the chill and the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. By 7:08 a.m., Sarah hurried into Altair Industries, the towering corporate building where she worked as a cleaner. The marble floors gleamed, echoing her hurried footsteps. Her supervisor appeared immediately. "You're late again." "I'm sorry," Sarah panted. Lena needed no excuses. "One more late mark and HR will be involved," the woman interrupted. "Yes, ma'am," Sarah said quietly. She grabbed her cleaning cart, ignoring the ache spreading across her chest with each breath. Employees arrived in crisp suits, heels clicking, coffee in hand. Invisible to them, Sarah moved silently, almost part of the marble floor. Except one man noticed. Adam Ryan, CEO of Altair Industries. Tall, confident, sharply dressed, eyes sharp and unreadable. He hated mornings like this, but then he heard it, a cough. Harsh, uneven, pained. He turned slightly, and there she was, leaning over her cart, hand to her chest, pale and trembling. Something inside him tugged, inexplicable and sharp. Across the lobby, a small head peeked from behind a chair. Lena, clutching her coloring book, wide-eyed, scanning the room. She's sick, but she still works, Lena whispered to herself, holding the crayon tight. Please. Can someone help her? Sarah stumbled, trying to hide it. Adam didn't look away. He noticed the exhaustion, the silent strength, the weight she carried. He noticed Lena's tiny hands gripping a coloring book, a child's attempt to protect her mother from the world. And then Lena approached him, tugging his sleeve. My mommy is sick. But she still works. Please, can you help her? Something inside Adam broke. Sarah tried to apologize, panic rising. She didn't mean. Adam looked at the child, her eyes wide with worry and hope. Thank you for telling me, he said softly. Sarah's lips parted, tears threatening. I'm so sorry. No, Adam said gently. You don't need to apologize. Lena hid behind her mother, peeking up nervously. Adam turned to Sarah. You're not well, he said quietly. You need to see a doctor. I can't, she whispered. I really can't afford. Then I'll help you, he replied firmly. Sarah froze. No, I can't accept. You're not accepting charity. You're accepting help. There's a difference, he said, steady and calm. Her lips trembled. She hadn't cried in years. Lena clutched her mother's hand. Please, don't let mommy get worse. Adam's chest tightened. I won't, he promised. This was the moment everything changed. For Sarah. For Lena. For Adam. A child's whispered plea, a mother's hidden pain, and a CO's heart awakened. The hospital's automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh, letting in a gust of cold air. Sarah Ollie shivered, her body trembling, not just from the chill but from sheer exhaustion. Each step she took was a negotiation with her aching muscles, her chest tightening painfully. Adam Ryan didn't let go of her arm. His grip was firm, steady, a silent reassurance that she wasn't alone. Lena ran beside them, small feet scuffing against the polished floor, clutching her mother's hand tightly. Mommy. Lena's voice was barely above a whisper, tinged with fear. Are you going to be okay? Sarah tried to smile, but it faltered immediately. I'll be fine, baby. Really? She bent over slightly, trying to shield her cough, but the effort left her breathless. Adam noticed everything. The way her hands trembled, the way her pale face betrayed exhaustion, the shallow rhythm of her breaths. He had seen countless employees come and go, but never like this. He had never seen someone carry so much weight, yet refuse to crumble. A nurse appeared almost immediately, rushing toward them. Ms. Ollie, we've been expecting you. Come this way, please. Adam guided Sarah carefully onto the wheelchair the nurse offered. Lena insisted on holding her mother's hand as Sarah was settled in. You don't need to worry, Adam said softly, crouching down to Lena's level. Mommy is going to be okay now. Lena looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. You really mean that? I do, Adam replied. I promise. Sarah watched the exchange silently, her throat tight. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but words failed her. Instead, she closed her eyes, letting herself feel something she hadn't in months, relief. Tests were quick but thorough. Blood was drawn, X-rays taken, oxygen monitored. Sarah tried to mask her fear and exhaustion, but the doctors and nurses noticed the faint tremor in her hands, the pallor of her skin. Adam stayed the entire time. Not as a CEO, not as a stranger, just as a person who refused to leave someone in need. He paced slightly, checking on Sarah between procedures, offering quiet reassurances. Lena sat beside the wheelchair, coloring quietly in her small notebook, her little brow furrowed in concern. At one point, Sarah's eyes fluttered closed, and a soft cough escaped her. Adam leaned closer. Breathe slowly, he instructed softly, his hand lightly supporting her back. I don't want to be a burden, she whispered, voice barely audible. You're not a burden, Adam said firmly yet gently. You're someone who deserves help. And I'm here because I want to help. Not because you owe me, not because I expect anything. You just deserve care. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. She hadn't allowed herself to cry in front of anyone for so long. The exhaustion, the fear, the constant pressure, it all seemed to crumble in this moment of kindness. Lena noticed and reached over, hugging her mother's arm tightly. "Mommy, it's okay," she whispered. "He's helping because he wants to. Just like you always help me." Sarah's lips trembled and she took a shaky breath. For so long she had carried everything alone. The bills, the sickness, the fear of failing her daughter. And now, in this sterile hospital room, she realized she didn't have to. The doctor returned with results. "Ms. Ollie, your lungs are congested, and your oxygen levels are low. You've likely been pushing yourself too hard while sick. We'll start treatment immediately. 4 fluids, medications to clear the infection, and oxygen support." Sarah's eyes widened. I can't pay for that," she whispered. Adam stepped forward. "All costs will go on my account," he said. The authority in his voice was calm, unwavering. Sarah's throat closed. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Adam replied gently. "Just focus on getting better. That's all that matters." Lena hugged her mother's arm again, whispering, "See, Mommy? He's kind, just like you always tell me people can be." Sarah felt a small smile break through her exhaustion. Her daughter's innocence, her unwavering hope, was a balm for her tired soul. As nurses prepared her for treatment, Sarah's body finally began to relax, allowing herself to lean back against the wheelchair. She closed her eyes and let herself breathe deeply, each inhale filling her with a fragile sense of safety. Adam stayed beside her, watching quietly as she settled, ensuring that Lena never left her side. He hadn't expected to feel this protective, this involved, but he couldn't ignore it. Seeing a single mother struggle alone, knowing the burden she bore for her child, it stirred something in him he hadn't felt in years. "Mommy, do you think you'll get better soon?" Lena asked softly, coloring her drawing of a rainbow on her notebook. Sarah opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "Yes, baby. I will get better. Thanks to you and him," she nodded toward Adam. Adam felt a flicker of warmth at her words but said nothing, letting the quiet dignity of the moment speak. Hours passed, but for the first time in what felt like forever, Sarah allowed herself to feel safe. Nurses administered treatment, monitored her oxygen, and guided her through breathing exercises. Adam and Lena stayed by her side, forming a small, unlikely circle of support. By the evening, Sarah felt a subtle change. The fever had dropped slightly, the breathing felt easier, and the crushing fatigue was replaced by a cautious relief. She looked at Lena, who had curled up beside her, exhausted from worry, and then at Adam, whose presence had been unwavering since the moment they arrived. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, tears spilling silently. I don't know how to thank you enough." "You don't need to," Adam replied gently. "Just focus on getting better. That's all that matters." Lena tugged his sleeve. "Sir, do you really mean it? That Mommy will be okay?" Adam knelt down, meeting her eyes. "I do, Lena. I promise." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. Her daughter's faith, her trust, and Adam's sincerity, all combined to give her something she hadn't felt in months: hope. That night, as Sarah rested in the hospital bed, Lena curled up beside her on a small chair, whispering stories softly to distract her mother from the coughing fits. Adam stood nearby, quietly ensuring they had everything they needed, from water to blankets, even small snacks for Lena. For the first time in years, Sarah realized she didn't have to fight alone. And in that quiet hospital room, a fragile, tentative bond was forming. A mother learning to accept help, a child witnessing kindness, and a man discovering the depth of empathy he hadn't realized he possessed. Outside the window, the city lights flickered against the winter night, but inside, warmth and hope had begun to take root. Something told Adam that this was only the beginning, not just of Sarah's healing, but of something far greater. For the first time in a long while, the three of them weren't just surviving, they were beginning to feel alive again. Morning light filtered softly through the hospital curtains, casting a warm golden hue over the small room. Sarah Ollie stirred awake, blinking against the brightness, her body still fragile but feeling slightly lighter than the previous night. The steady beep of monitors and the quiet rustle of nurses in the hallway were a strange comfort. Beside her, Lena was curled up in a chair, still asleep, one tiny hand resting on her mother's arm. Her chest rose and fell gently with each breath, a rhythm so normal it made Sarah's heart ache with gratitude. For the first time in months, she felt safe enough to rest without fear that her daughter would be alone. A soft knock at the door made Sarah startle. Adam Ryan stepped in, hands tucked casually in his pockets, his expression calm but attentive. He didn't need to ask if she was awake. He had been checking periodically, watching quietly from the doorway. "Good morning," he said softly. Sarah managed a tired smile. "Good morning." Her throat was dry, her chest still sore, but the warmth in her heart softened the edges of pain. "You came early. I wanted to make sure you and Lena were doing okay," Adam replied. He pulled a chair close to the bed, careful not to crowd them, and sat down. "How are you feeling?" Sarah hesitated, not wanting to sound weak. "Better, think. Still tired." She coughed lightly, trying to suppress it. Adam nodded, unfazed. "That's to be expected. You've been running yourself into the ground for months." Sarah looked down, shame and embarrassment bubbling up. I didn't want anyone to know. Can't stop working. Bills, rent, food. I don't have a choice." Adam's gaze softened. "I understand. But surviving isn't the same as living. You've been surviving alone for too long, Sarah." The words struck her. She had never admitted that truth aloud, not even to herself. She glanced at Lena, still asleep, and felt a lump form in her throat. All she wanted was to provide for her daughter, to give her a normal life, even if it meant sacrificing herself. Adam reached out, gently placing a hand over hers. "You're not weak for needing help. You're strong for carrying so much. But you don't have to do it alone." Sarah's lips trembled. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back. "I don't know how to accept help. I've never needed anyone before." "You have now," Adam said softly. "And that's okay." Lena stirred, blinking sleepily. "Mommy," she whispered, voice hoarse from sleep. "You okay?" Sarah nodded, smiling faintly. "I'm okay, baby." She squeezed her daughter's hand. "Thanks for staying with me last night." Lena's eyes sparkled. "I had to. I wasn't going to let you be alone." Adam couldn't help but smile at her earnestness. "You're brave, Lena. Very brave." Lena grinned shyly, hugging her mother again. Sarah's chest tightened with gratitude. Seeing her daughter safe, happy, and cared for lifted a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. The nurse arrived shortly afterward, checking Sarah's vitals and adjusting her for. "How are you feeling today, Ms. Ollie?" she asked kindly. "Better, I think," Sarah admitted. "Thanks to everyone here." The nurse smiled. "That's good. Keep resting. Your body needs it. No pushing yourself too soon." Sarah nodded, then glanced at Adam. "He's been helping me. Staying here with Lena and me all night." Adam shrugged lightly. "Someone had to make sure they were safe." Sarah smiled faintly. "I don't know how to thank you enough." "You don't need to," Adam said gently. "Just focus on getting stronger. That's thanks enough." The morning passed slowly but peacefully. Sarah rested, occasionally sipping water or nibbling small pieces of toast. Lena busied herself with coloring, whispering stories about princesses and unicorns, occasionally glancing at her mother to ensure she was awake. Adam remained quietly in the room, observing without intruding, always ready to intervene if either of them needed anything. Finally Sarah spoke, her voice soft but hesitant. "Adam, I don't want to be selfish, but how did you know to help? You barely know me." Adam paused, meeting her gaze steadily. "I saw you struggling, and I couldn't walk away. You were carrying so much weight. And for what? For a little girl who deserves to see her mother happy and healthy. I couldn't ignore that. Sarah's throat tightened. I've been pretending to be strong for so long. I didn't realize how alone I really was. You're not alone anymore, Adam said firmly. Not as long as I'm around. Lena looked up, her eyes wide. Really? You'll stay? Yes, Adam said with a small, reassuring smile. I'll stay. For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to believe him. The fear, the exhaustion, the constant weight of responsibility. It felt a little lighter. Maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself to be cared for. By afternoon, the doctor returned with more encouraging news. Your lungs are clearing up nicely. Keep up the rest and fluids. You'll be able to go home soon. Sarah blinked, relief flooding through her. Home? I thought it would take longer. Adam smiled faintly. See, you're stronger than you realize. But strength doesn't mean doing everything alone. Lena bounced slightly in her chair. Mommy, can we go home soon? Yes, baby, Sarah said, squeezing her daughter's hand. Soon. Adam watched them, his chest tightening with an unfamiliar warmth. He wasn't used to feeling responsible for anyone like this. But seeing the bond between mother and daughter, seeing their resilience and love, it stirred something he couldn't ignore. Ms. Ollie, he said gently, breaking the comfortable silence. When you go home, I want you to promise me one thing. Sarah looked up, wary but curious. What's that? Promise me you won't push yourself so hard again. You and Lena deserve more than survival. You deserve care, rest and peace. You're not just a provider, you're a person. Sarah's lips quivered. I promise. Adam nodded, satisfied, and turned his gaze to Lena. And you, young lady, promise to remind your mother to rest? Lena nodded enthusiastically. I will. I'll make sure she eats and sleeps. The three shared a quiet laugh, the tension from the previous days melting slightly. It wasn't a cure for all problems, but it was a start, a fragile but hopeful beginning. As evening approached, Adam prepared to leave, but not without one last look at Sarah and Lena. I'll check on you tomorrow, he said softly. Rest tonight. You've earned it. Sarah nodded, a small smile gracing her tired features. Thank you for everything. Adam's gaze softened. No, thank you for trusting me. Lena waved him off shyly. See you tomorrow, Mr. Adam. As they watched him leave, Sarah felt a strange but comforting thought. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't entirely against them. Maybe there were people willing to care, willing to help, willing to stand by them when life felt impossibly heavy. That night, as mother and daughter curled up in the hospital room, Sarah allowed herself to sleep without the constant fear gnawing at her chest. Lena's small hand held hers tightly, and the promise of a new day ahead was more than just a dream. It was a hope slowly becoming real. Outside the window, the city lights blinked softly in the winter night, but inside, warmth, trust, and a sense of belonging began to bloom. For the first time in a long while, Sarah realized that she didn't have to fight alone anymore. And that realization, quiet, gentle, and unassuming, was the most powerful medicine of all. The morning sun filtered gently through the thin curtains of Sarah's small apartment. It was a delicate, quiet kind of light, softening the harsh lines of the room. The space was modest, worn with age, but it was home, the place Sarah had fought to keep for herself and Lena, even in the face of exhaustion, sickness, and endless responsibilities. Sarah stirred slowly in bed, the warmth of the blanket around her offering a rare comfort. For the first time in weeks, she didn't wake to a jarring alarm or a pounding headache. Lena was curled beside her, soft breaths rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. Her tiny hand found Sarah's, holding it instinctively. Sarah smiled faintly, brushing a curl from her daughter's face. Good morning, baby, she whispered. Morning, Mommy, Lena mumbled sleepily, eyes still heavy with dreams. Are you okay? I am much better, Sarah said honestly. She glanced at the small stack of unopened bills on the counter. They were still there, waiting like silent reminders of the life she could never fully rest from. But for this moment, she allowed herself a fragile sense of relief. There was a soft knock at the door, gentle but deliberate. Sarah's heart skipped a beat, and Lena's head popped up instantly. Adam Ryan stood in the doorway, his expression calm but carefully attentive. He was dressed casually, well, as casually as a CEO could be, but there was a softness in his gaze that softened the usual intimidating air around him. "Good morning," he said, voice low enough to keep it intimate but strong enough to carry authority. Sarah felt her cheeks flush. "Adam, you shouldn't be here." "I insisted," he replied with a small, reassuring smile. "How are you feeling?" "Better. A lot better," she admitted, though a small cough escaped despite her efforts. Adam's gaze softened immediately. "That's good to hear. I wanted to bring breakfast. Thought it might make the morning a little easier." He held up a small bag from a nearby bakery. "Nothing fancy, just something warm." Lena's eyes lit up instantly. "Yay. Pancakes." "Even better," Adam said, kneeling slightly to meet her eyes. "Warm croissants and fresh fruit." Sarah's lips quivered with gratitude. You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Adam replied simply. "You've been through a lot, and it's about time someone helped you instead of letting you shoulder everything alone." Sarah blinked, emotions threatening to spill over. She wanted to protest, to insist she could manage, but she was exhausted, emotionally and physically. Slowly she nodded. "Thank you." They shared breakfast quietly. Lena chattered about school, her small voice filling the apartment with a light Sarah hadn't realized she had missed. Adam listened patiently, occasionally smiling, occasionally teasing Lena gently, making her giggle. Watching them interact, Sarah felt a small, unfamiliar warmth bloom in her chest. Once breakfast was done, Adam stood. "I'll handle the bills today. You focus on resting." Sarah shook her head. "I can't let you." "You are not refusing," he said firmly, though his tone lacked harshness. "Consider it a loan you will never repay. I only want to make sure you and Lena are safe and healthy." Her throat tightened. Why are you doing this?" Adam's gaze softened. "Because you've been carrying so much for so long. And because someone needed to step in before it broke you completely." Tears pricked the corners of her eyes. I don't know how to accept help." "You will learn," Adam said gently. "Step by step." The day passed quietly but meaningfully. Sarah took a short nap, Lena curled up beside her, and Adam checked in periodically, ensuring she had water, proper blankets, and comfort. There was no intrusion, just quiet support, patient and steady. By mid-afternoon, Sarah felt strong enough to attempt small tasks, tidying the kitchen, folding laundry, and preparing a simple snack for Lena. Adam helped when needed, silently watching her movements, occasionally offering assistance without comment. The atmosphere was calm, warm, and gentle, a stark contrast to the chaotic, overwhelming world outside their small apartment. Finally, as the sun dipped lower, painting the room in warm golden light, Sarah sat on the sofa with Lena in her lap. "Thank you, Adam, for everything today. I didn't think someone would care this much." Adam crouched slightly to meet their gaze. "You deserve care. And you deserve to know that you are not alone." Lena, ever honest and innocent, tilted her head. "You're nice, Mr. Adam. Really nice." Adam chuckled softly. "Thank you, Lena. That means a lot." Sarah leaned against the sofa, exhaustion creeping back into her body but softened by the presence of someone she could trust. I want to do more for Lena," she admitted quietly. "I want her life to feel normal. I don't want her to worry like she did when I was sick." "You're already doing more than enough," Adam said gently. "You love her, you fight for her, and you're learning to accept help when you need it. That's more than most people do." Sarah's chest tightened. I hate feeling like a burden." "You're not a burden," Adam said firmly. "You're human. And human beings need help sometimes." For a long moment, they sat in silence, letting the words sink in. Lena fell asleep again, her head resting against her mother's shoulder. Adam watched the two of them, feeling an unfamiliar tenderness and protectiveness. Finally Sarah spoke, her voice soft. I want to be strong for her. I also want to be healthy for her. And I can't do that alone. You won't have to, Adam said. Not as long as I'm around. Step by step, we'll figure it out. Sarah's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. It was tentative, fragile, but it carried hope, a hope she hadn't felt in months. Adam glanced at the clock, realizing the day had passed faster than expected. I should go for now, he said quietly. But I'll check in tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll plan the next steps. Appointments, rest, food, everything. You won't face this alone. Sarah nodded, feeling gratitude, relief, and a strange sense of security she had almost forgotten. Thank you, Adam, truly. Adam's gaze softened one last time before he turned to leave. You're welcome. Just remember, accepting help is not weakness, it's strength. And you're stronger than you realize. As the door closed, Sarah and Lena sat together, the quiet apartment feeling warmer than ever. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself to breathe deeply, to relax, and to believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. And as she held her daughter close, she realized that maybe, just maybe, life could be less about surviving and more about living, together with hope, love, and support. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the windows of Sarah's small apartment, painting the walls in soft, golden hues. It was quieter than usual. Lena was still asleep, curled beneath her blankets like a small, warm bundle of hope. For the first time in weeks, Sarah didn't wake up to pounding headaches or the harsh sting of exhaustion. Her chest still ached, but the hospital care yesterday and Adam's insistence on rest had worked wonders. Sarah took a slow, steady breath, letting herself linger in the fragile peace of the morning. She could hear Lena's soft, rhythmic breathing and felt a tiny smile tug at her lips. Today, she thought, I can focus on us. There was a knock at the door, light but firm. Her heart skipped a beat. Adam, she called softly. The door opened just a crack, revealing his familiar presence. He was wearing a casual sweater and jeans, still professional in posture but approachable in demeanor. Good morning, he said quietly. Sarah moved aside, gesturing him in. I didn't expect you so early. I promised I'd check in, Adam said, stepping inside. How are you feeling? Better, she said honestly. The rest yesterday helped a lot. Lena and we slept almost through the night. Adam's gaze softened. Good. That's what matters. Lena stirred in her sleep at the sound of voices. She rubbed her eyes and blinked up at Adam. Good morning, Mr. Adam, she whispered sleepily. Adam crouched slightly, offering her a gentle smile. Good morning, Lena. Did you sleep well? Yes, she mumbled, then added quietly. Mommy looks better today. Sarah's heart swelled. She had tried so hard to hide her sickness from Lena, to shield her from worry. And now, seeing her daughter's relief, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and pride. Breakfast? Adam asked, holding up a small bag from the same bakery as yesterday. Lena's eyes lit up instantly. Sarah laughed softly. You're spoiling us. Maybe, Adam admitted, smiling. But you two deserve it. They ate quietly, savoring the warmth of the food and the comfort of the moment. Adam spoke little, letting Sarah lead the conversation, asking her about Lena's school, her favorite activities, and her own plans for the day. Sarah found herself relaxing in his presence. He wasn't just a CEO here. He was someone who genuinely listened, who made her feel valued and seen. After breakfast, Adam stood and offered his hand to Sarah. Let's take a short walk, he suggested. Fresh air will do you good. Sarah hesitated, but Lena's small hand tugged hers, whispering, Come on, Mommy. We can go outside for a little while. The three of them stepped into the crisp morning air. The city was bustling, but somehow it didn't feel overwhelming. Sarah walked slowly, feeling Adam and Lena on either side of her, their support tangible. You don't have to do everything alone, you know, Adam said gently. Sarah glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. Easy to say when you're not the one paying bills, worrying about rent, or keeping food on the table. Adam's expression softened. I know. I just want you to understand that asking for help isn't failing. You're not weak. You're strong. Strong enough to recognize when it's okay to let someone else in. Sarah swallowed hard. She wanted to argue, to insist she could manage, but deep down she knew he was right. She had been carrying the weight of the world alone for too long, and yesterday's collapse had been a harsh reminder of her limits. Lena tugged at her hand. Mommy, can we come here again tomorrow? Sarah looked at Adam, a small smile tugging at her lips. I think we can. They returned home just as the sun rose higher, warming the apartment with soft light. Sarah felt more grounded than she had in weeks. She unpacked the breakfast, organized small chores, and even managed to prepare a quick lunch for Lena. The tasks were slow, careful, but she no longer felt rushed or desperate. Adam's presence provided a safety net she hadn't realized she needed. By late morning, a knock at the door signaled another surprise. Adam again, but this time carrying a small envelope. These are appointments, he said, handing it to Sarah. Checkups, blood work, and a follow-up with the specialist. All covered. You don't have to worry about anything. Sarah felt her hands tremble slightly as she held the envelope. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me help, Adam replied simply. That's enough. Okay, Sarah whispered, a tear slipping down her cheek. Thank you. The day passed with quiet routines. Sarah and Lena played, laughed, and read together. Adam checked in periodically, always unobtrusive, always present. Each moment brought a sense of normalcy Sarah hadn't felt in months, simple yet profound. As the evening approached, Sarah reflected on the day. She had eaten properly, rested, and even laughed without guilt. Lena was happy, her energy restored by attention and care. And Adam? He had become a steady presence, someone she could trust. Sitting on the sofa, holding Lena as she drifted off to sleep, Sarah whispered softly. Maybe it's okay to accept help. Maybe it's okay to let someone in. Adam, standing silently by the doorway, caught the words. His chest tightened, a mixture of pride and protectiveness rising. Yes, he murmured to himself. It's okay. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself to hope, not just for survival, but for a life where she and Lena could thrive. And she realized that maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't meant to be faced alone. The morning air was crisp as Sarah stepped out of her apartment, Lena tugging her hand gently. The city was awake now. Buses honking, people rushing, shop windows reflecting the pale winter sun. It had been nearly a week since Sarah's collapse at Altair Industries, and for the first time, she felt a cautious optimism. She had rested, visited the doctor, and even received her first round of medication. Her lungs still ached occasionally, but she had energy she hadn't felt in months. Lena's small voice broke through her thoughts. Mommy, are we going back today? Sarah smiled softly, squeezing her daughter's hand. Yes, baby. Today we go back. But we'll be careful, okay? I promise. Lena nodded, eyes wide, as if sensing the gravity of her mother returning to the place where her struggles had almost overwhelmed her. They arrived at Altair Industries, the towering glass building that now felt less intimidating and more familiar. Sarah inhaled deeply. The lobby gleamed under the bright morning lights, polished floors reflecting the bustling employees around them. Adam appeared as if on cue, his presence calm and reassuring. Morning, he said quietly. You ready? Sarah nodded. I think so. He offered a gentle smile. Remember, today is about pacing yourself. You're not alone anymore. Lena hugged her mother tightly before running off toward the security desk, waving cheerfully. Sarah felt her chest tighten with affection. Her daughter's innocence and bravery were a constant reminder of why she had to keep going. Inside, Sarah's supervisor spotted her immediately. Ms. Ollie, she said sharply, eyebrows raised. Back so soon. Sarah forced a polite smile. Yes, ma'am. Feeling better. The supervisor's gaze flicked to Adam, who stood quietly in the background. The CEO's expression was calm, but there was a silent warning in his eyes that silenced any potential criticism. Good, the supervisor said finally, turning away. Just make sure you finish your tasks on time. Sarah exhaled slowly. She knew the work ahead would be demanding, but with Adam nearby, if only in support, she felt a newfound strength. The day passed in a flurry of sweeping floors, organizing conference rooms, and cleaning the vast glass panels lining the executive offices. Sarah moved slowly but steadily, aware of her limits yet determined not to let fatigue overwhelm her. She took short breaks whenever necessary, drinking water and catching her breath. Adam checked in periodically, bringing small bottles of water or offering a reassuring smile from a distance. Around midday, a group of employees stopped by the lobby, whispering quietly. Sarah overheard snippets of conversation. She's back. After what happened? CEO personally making sure she's okay. Sarah's heart skipped. She hadn't realized how much her struggles had drawn attention. She felt vulnerable, exposed, yet a quiet pride stirred inside her. Adam caught her gaze from across the room. His slight nod told her everything she needed to know. She wasn't being judged, she was being supported. During a quiet moment, Sarah leaned against a railing, wiping sweat from her brow. Lena had been playing quietly in the corner, absorbed in a coloring book. Sarah felt Adam's presence beside her. You're doing well, he said softly. I know it's not easy. Sarah shook her head slightly, a small laugh escaping. Easy? Hardly. But can do it. I have to. Adam placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to do it alone anymore. Her eyes met his, gratitude mixing with a cautious vulnerability. It feels strange to accept help, she admitted. That's normal, he replied. Strong people often struggle with letting others in. But accepting help isn't weakness. It's survival. Sarah nodded, swallowing hard. She had spent so long carrying everything on her own. And yet, here was someone who reminded her that she could still be strong while letting others support her. Later, as the afternoon sun began to filter through the tall windows, a sudden cough escaped her. Not a mild one, sharp, jagged, demanding attention. Her body wobbled slightly, panic rising immediately. Adam was at her side in an instant. Easy, he said firmly, steadying her. Breathe slowly. Lena's eyes widened with concern. Mommy. Sarah shook her head, trying to smile. I'm okay. Adam's gaze softened. No, you're not okay. Let's take a quick break. He guided her to a nearby bench, sitting beside her. See, there's no shame in slowing down. Sarah exhaled shakily. She hated feeling dependent, but she also hated feeling this fragile again. Adam's calm presence, his unwavering support, made the panic ebb slowly. You're doing fine, he said quietly. Every step you take today is progress. Tears threatened to spill, not from weakness but from relief. Someone finally saw her struggles, not as shortcomings, but as human challenges deserving care and compassion. Lena crawled into her mother's lap, wrapping her tiny arms around her. I knew you could do it, Mommy, she whispered. Sarah hugged her back, whispering softly. Thanks to you, baby. I can do it because of you. Adam watched them, a faint smile on his face. Something inside him shifted, a deep, protective warmth he hadn't expected. Watching Sarah care for her daughter, despite exhaustion and illness, reinforced the fierce resilience he had glimpsed before. By late afternoon, Sarah was able to complete her tasks at a steady pace, finishing everything on her list. It was exhausting, but fulfilling in a way she hadn't felt in months. She glanced at Adam, who gave her a subtle nod of approval. You did it, he said quietly as they left the building together. Sarah smiled, a genuine curve of relief and pride. We did it. Lena and I. Adam's gaze softened. Yes. And you're learning that asking for help doesn't make you any less capable. Makes you human. And humans are stronger when they don't face life alone. Lena skipped ahead, turning to wave at both of them. Tomorrow we can do it again, Mommy. Sarah laughed, the sound light and full of warmth. Yes, baby. Tomorrow we'll do it again. And as they walked home together, the sun casting long shadows across the city streets, Sarah realized something powerful. Strength wasn't just about surviving alone. It was about trusting, accepting, and growing alongside those who cared. And for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt like she could truly breathe. Not just for survival, but for hope, for love, and for a future where she and Lena didn't have to face life's struggles alone. The week passed in a blur of routine, yet each day carried a quiet transformation. Sarah felt the difference in small but significant ways. Her steps lighter, her cough less harsh, her energy slowly returning. Lena laughed more, skipping through the apartment. Her presence a constant reminder of why Sarah had to keep going. And Adam? Well, Adam had become a fixture she both depended on and silently worried about. This morning, the sun barely peeking over the skyline, Sarah and Lena prepared for another day at Altair Industries. Sarah's uniform was freshly pressed. She adjusted her apron carefully, mindful of her posture. Lena tugged at her mother's hand, chattering about coloring books and the breakfast pancakes she'd eaten. Mommy, Lena asked as they walked, do you think Mr. Adam ever gets tired? Sarah smiled gently, squeezing her daughter's hand. Even grown-ups get tired, baby. But sometimes, helping someone else gives us energy we didn't know we had. Lena considered this carefully, then nodded. Like when we help each other at home. Exactly, Sarah said softly. Arriving at Altair Industries, Sarah felt the familiar mix of apprehension and determination. The lobby was alive with activity. Employees moving briskly, heels clicking, papers rustling, but it no longer felt overwhelming. Today she felt prepared. Adam was waiting, leaning against the polished railing of the elevator area. His expression softened as he saw her approach. Good morning, he said warmly. Good morning, Sarah replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. He glanced down at Lena, who waved energetically. Hello, Lena, he said. Ready for another day of coloring and adventure? Lena giggled. Yes. And looking for Mommy. Sarah laughed softly. Adventure sounds good. The morning passed smoothly. Sarah moved through her cleaning tasks with care, mindful of her energy, taking breaks when necessary. Adam checked in discreetly, offering small gestures of support. A bottle of water, a warm glance, a few quiet words of encouragement. Each time, Sarah felt herself relaxing a little more, realizing that this wasn't about charity. It was about partnership, about mutual respect. By midday, Sarah found herself cleaning the large glass panels in the conference room. Her reflection stared back at her, pale but determined, tired but resilient. She adjusted her stance, feeling a familiar ache in her shoulders. She hadn't realized how much tension she carried, how much she had forced herself to appear strong when her body was screaming otherwise. Adam's voice startled her. You're pushing too hard, he said quietly, appearing at the doorway. Sarah blinked, embarrassed. I'm fine. Just a few more minutes. No, he said firmly, stepping closer. Enough is enough. Let's take a break. Sarah hesitated, then sighed. I don't want to be weak in front of you. Adam's gaze softened. This isn't about weakness. This is about taking care of yourself. And yes, I care enough to insist on it. She swallowed, realizing the truth in his words. For so long, she had equated asking for help with failure, but Adam's steady presence reframed it. Asking for care didn't diminish her strength. It enhanced it. Lena wandered into the conference room at that moment, holding a small notebook. Mommy, I drew a picture for you. Sarah's heart melted. She knelt to embrace her daughter, marveling at the crayon strokes forming a sun, a rainbow, and two figures, one tall, one small. It's beautiful, baby, she whispered, brushing a curl from Lena's forehead. Adam observed quietly from the doorway, a subtle smile on his lips. Seeing the mother and daughter together, he felt a quiet stir of protectiveness and admiration. There was something undeniable in the bond they shared, a raw, unpolished strength that didn't come from power or wealth, but from love, resilience, and courage. Sarah looked up at Adam, hesitating. "Thank you," she murmured. "For everything. For helping, for understanding, for being here." Adam's expression softened. "You don't need to thank me. You've already shown more courage than most people ever do. I just want to make sure you don't have to face it alone anymore." Sarah's chest tightened. It wasn't just his words. It was the sincerity behind them. The unspoken promise of support. The reassurance that she wasn't invisible, that she mattered. Later, during a quiet moment in the lobby, Sarah leaned against a railing, watching employees pass by. Adam appeared beside her. "Do you ever feel like you're being judged?" he asked gently. Sarah sighed. "Every day. People see me cleaning, see me as just staff. They don't know the stories behind my struggle. They don't see the nights I've spent worried sick about bills, about medicine, about keeping Lena safe. They only see the uniform, the mop, the cart." Adam nodded slowly. "I understand. But what I see is something different. I see a mother who does everything she can for her child, a woman who perseveres when the world gives her every reason to stop, a person with a strength that most people don't recognize." Sarah blinked, overwhelmed. "You really mean that?" "I do," he said softly. "And it's why I'm here." Tears threatened to spill, but Sarah swallowed hard. Vulnerability wasn't easy for her, yet with Adam it felt safe. She didn't have to explain, justify, or defend herself. His presence was a shield, not a judgment. As the workday ended, Adam offered to walk them home. Sarah hesitated, feeling a mix of gratitude and embarrassment, but Lena tugged her hand, chattering about how fun the walk would be. Outside, the city lights twinkled faintly as dusk settled. Adam walked slightly ahead, glancing back to ensure they were safe. Sarah found herself opening up more than she had expected, sharing small anecdotes about Lena, about struggles she had long hidden, about hopes she barely dared to speak aloud. Adam listened patiently, never interrupting, offering only quiet reassurance when needed. With every step, Sarah felt the weight of months lift slightly. The burden of facing life alone was still there, but it no longer felt insurmountable. Lena skipped ahead, her laughter ringing through the streets. Sarah followed slowly, hand in hand with Adam, feeling a strange sense of normalcy. Perhaps normalcy wasn't about perfection or ease. Perhaps it was about trust, support, and the courage to let someone in. As they reached the apartment, Sarah paused on the steps, turning to Adam. I don't know how to thank you. For everything." Adam shook his head, smiling faintly. "You don't need to. Just promise me you'll let yourself accept help when you need it. And promise me you'll keep letting Lena see your strength, but also your humanity." Sarah nodded, tears slipping down silently. "I promise." Adam watched as she entered her apartment, Lena skipping ahead. A warmth spread through him, a mix of admiration, protectiveness, and an unspoken connection growing stronger every day. For Sarah, the day had been more than a return to work. It had been a step toward balance, trust, and emotional healing. And for Adam, it had been a reminder that strength isn't just measured in power or money, but in courage, love, and the willingness to protect and uplift those who inspire it. And as night fell, the city quieting outside, Sarah felt it deep in her heart. Tomorrow and the days after wouldn't be easy. But she wouldn't face them alone anymore. The morning sun spilled gently through the thin curtains of Sarah's apartment. The golden light felt like a promise, a soft reassurance that today was different. Today, Sarah felt it in her chest, a sense of possibility, fragile but undeniable. She stretched slowly, mindful of her strength returning after the hospital stay. The persistent cough that had haunted her for weeks was now only a faint shadow. Her body still bore the marks of exhaustion, but for the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. Lena bounded into the room, her curls bouncing, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Mommy! I drew you a picture for today too." Sarah smiled, feeling her heart swell. "You're amazing, baby." She leaned down, kissing her daughter's forehead, inhaling the comforting scent of fresh childhood. Lena held up the drawing. Two figures hand in hand under a bright sun, surrounded by hearts. One figure was taller, representing Sarah. The other smaller, Lena herself. And standing slightly to the side, a third figure with a calm, protective stance. Adam, though she didn't know his name yet. Sarah laughed softly, touched. "This is beautiful, Lena. Thank you." Lena's small hand slipped into hers. "Mommy, do you think Mr. Adam will come by today?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "I think he will." She didn't know exactly why, but she trusted him. By mid-morning the doorbell rang. Lena dashed to open it, and there he was. Adam, impeccably dressed but with a softer air than usual, a bouquet of daisies in his hand, a gesture so thoughtful it made Sarah's chest tighten. "Good morning," he said, kneeling slightly to greet Lena. "How's my favorite little artist today?" Lena giggled. "Good. Mommy's feeling better." Adam's eyes softened as he turned to Sarah. "How are you feeling?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Better. Much better. Thanks to you." He shook his head slightly. "You didn't need saving. You needed support. And I'm glad you let me provide it." They shared a quiet moment, filled with unspoken gratitude. Sarah realized that help wasn't weakness, it was connection. And sometimes the people who mattered most entered life quietly, like sunlight through a crack. Later at the cafe, Sarah felt a strange sense of peace. She moved through her tasks with ease, Lena beside her, coloring and chatting. Customers smiled at the little girl, drawn to her joy and innocence. And Adam stayed in the background, quietly observing, offering smiles and occasional small gestures, a refill of water, a warm cup of coffee, an approving nod. At noon, Sarah finally allowed herself a proper break. She sat down, the weight of months of struggle easing slightly. Adam joined her. "You should rest," he said gently. "I am resting," she replied softly. "No," he said, shaking his head. "You're finally allowing yourself to be cared for. That's resting." Sarah blinked at him, realizing the truth in his words. She had spent so long carrying everything alone, convincing herself that weakness wasn't an option. But Adam had shown her that strength could coexist with vulnerability, and that accepting care didn't diminish her courage. Lena tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, look. I made a rainbow with crayons." Sarah laughed, brushing back her hair. "It's perfect, baby. Just like you." Adam watched the scene quietly, admiration and something warmer in his eyes. He saw a woman who had endured so much, yet continued to love fiercely, and a little girl whose innocence illuminated every room she entered. And he realized he had never wanted to protect anyone more than he wanted to protect them, both. That evening, as the city lights shimmered outside the apartment windows, Sarah, Lena, and Adam sat together for dinner. Simple food, laughter spilling easily, stories exchanged. It wasn't lavish, but it was home, the first home Sarah had felt in a long time. Sarah paused, watching Adam interact with Lena, and a tear slid down her cheek. "I never imagined this," she whispered. Adam reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "This isn't magic," he said softly. "It's trust, honesty, and letting people in. It's you allowing yourself to be seen, Sarah." Her chest tightened. I've been so used to fighting alone. I don't know how to accept kindness without feeling guilty." "You don't have to feel guilty," he said. "You've earned it by being brave every day. And bravery isn't just surviving. It's allowing yourself to live fully, with support and love." Lena tugged at their hands. "Mommy, Mr. Adam says I'm his favorite artist." Sarah laughed through tears. "You are, baby. You really are." Adam's gaze met hers, quiet and steady. "And you are someone who deserves happiness, Sarah. You deserve to be cared for. You deserve moments like this." She nodded, realizing she had been blind to her own needs for too long. And now, with Adam by her side, she could finally imagine a future where struggle didn't always mean suffering. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a gentle rhythm. Sarah continued her work at the cafe, Lena attended school, and Adam visited often, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes simply spending time with them. The world outside remained challenging, bills still needed paying, life still demanded resilience. But Sarah felt different, stronger, not because she carried everything alone, but because she had learned that asking for help and accepting it didn't make her weak, made her human. One evening, as the three of them sat on the small balcony of Sarah's apartment, watching the city lights flicker like stars, Lena leaned against her mother. "Mommy, I like this," she whispered. Sarah hugged her tightly, glancing at Adam, who smiled warmly from beside them. "Me too, baby. Me too." Adam reached over, gently placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we face it together. Always."